As the long hot days of summer begin to fade imperceptibly towards autumn, we begin to feel the year moving forward. We become aware of new possibilities. I mean, it's still warm. There's lots of warm weather to come. Children are still swimming and building sandcastles, but autumn is the time for renewal, and it's not too far away. So why don't we go in and renew ourselves with a nice cup of tea? Hello, I'm Peter John Cooper. On the opposite side of the green from the cliff edge is a row of hotels. Or what used to be hotels. The big hydros were converted into flats years ago, and the smaller hotels have mostly been replaced by apartment blocks. Not unreasonably, as this is definitely the best view in the town. But the council tries to maintain the last few hotels as they are essential for the character of the place. Well, we'll have to see how they manage that in the years to come. Today's story is called Clarice's Hotel. It's great to see the scaffolding coming down at last. The walls all white and pristine, the windows looking out over the West Cliff Green towards the sea, all polished and sparkling. Ah, yes, a great improvement on what was there before. And the twin pinnacles, of course, gleaming in the late summer sun. Oh, I've had to wait to see it. Oh, yes, waiting. That's what I learnt to do, waiting in the hotel trade, waiting until the time is right to move forward. It was Clarice's hotel, called that by one of her ancestors who'd run it since the year dot, each generation handing on the business and the name. I suppose it did fool some customers who might think they were getting Claridge's on sea. So I'll keep the name in memory of her and her mother before that. But renewing it was easier said than done. It took me money and time. A lot of time, but I had the time. As I said, I was happy to wait, sitting out on the West Cliff every day, watching the demolition of the old building and the struggle to build the new. Even if I had to live in a little studio flat nearby whilst it was all happening, I just wanted to see the new building arise, relish the process, a sort of payoff for my efforts and my patience. When she got ill, Clarice carried on directing operations from her bed. I suppose I shall have to trust you with it. There isn't anybody else. Now, don't do anything silly, John. I know you're quite capable of making a mess of it. We have a very valuable asset here. It'll never make us rich, but if you don't screw it up completely, we'll be able to get by for years until if you get a job over the winter to pay the expenses. Remember, the laundry van comes on Friday morning and the bin store needs to be unlocked on Monday. Don't let anybody open those upstairs windows. They let the draft in. We won't be able to afford the heating. Get somebody halfway adequate to do the washing up. I'm trusting you to keep it running exactly as it should. And when there was another disaster downstairs, salt in the sugar basin or whatever, and some old dear pale-faced lips pulled tight across her dentures threatened to sue. Oh, you should have stood up to her. If only you'd been more of a man, we could have done so much for this place. Little did she know, I had plans. Oh yes, I had plans. But they could wait. Clarice had a book with the detailed instructions of how the hotel should be run on a day-to-day basis. It had been written out by Clarice I, her grandmother, and added to by her mother, Clarice II, with detailed notes by herself, the third and present Clarice. It was more than a Bible, it was an exegesis. Some of the rules were laughable. We still had a maid who carried hot water up to the guest rooms for them to wash in, because we'd never been able to afford plumbing for hand basins. Although the maid who did it must have been nearing her 90s and spilt as much on the stairs as she managed to get to the rooms. Thank God Clarice II had got a lavatory installed on each landing, and Dillis didn't have to carry chamber pots up and down. And despite the fact we were able to describe it as having the best views in Bournemouth, out across the green and out into the bay, I never had the opportunity in all the years we were married to stop for 5 minutes and enjoy that view myself. It was a game of cat and mouse with the council when it came to it. But as my friend Neil the architect kept encouraging me, the developer will always win in the end. You just need enough resources and a tenacity close to desperation. And time. Plenty of time. Well, I had time. I wasn't going to be doing anything else. I was prepared for the long haul. And as for desperation, yes, that underpinned everything. I was desperate. I had been desperate for a long time. Every time I had to don the rubber gloves to clear the blockages in the lavatories, or fell over the pile of Zimmers in the hallway. It's no good moaning. You need to learn. It's something you have to put up with in running an hotel, she would say. Yes, dear. It'll be worth it, you see, one day. Oh yes, it'll be worth it. I'll make sure of that. Each little event, each little insult and glare from the guests, each little inconvenience and humiliation, I've stored them away. They are money in the bank to me, the bank of resentment, ready for the big payout. This is how the council game goes. Some unspecified developer puts in outline planning permission for construction of a block of flats in place of the hotel. Well, the council turns it down straight away. We must maintain the number of hotel beds in the town. It's in a conservation area, and so on. But Neil is clever, you see. He guides the strategy. He's done this all before. We now get the public on side, maintaining the charm of the place for the benefit of all. We go public and start a campaign to preserve the character of the West Cliff and the dear little Clarice's hotel from the ravages of these developers, whoever they may be. Oh, we want to work with the community, we say. We will upgrade the building in keeping with the locality. It will be of architectural merit. It will include public access areas, including an ice rink and a concert hall, and there will be a pinnacle. All the buildings round here have a pinnacle. But now the council turns us down. Oh, far too big, out of keeping. Oh, we say, That's one in the eye for the local community. Look at all the lovely things we were going to provide for them, and we apologise to the locals. But we keep going. We go back to the council with the business case. There's no requirement for this sort of bed offer anymore. It has to be all en suite with toilets that work and air conditioning and heating. There is no way that can be included in the space available at the cost we can afford. The bed occupancy is going down all over Bournemouth. People no longer want these sort of holidays. It's all towels folded into swans on the bed when they arrive and chocolates on the pillow. In order to compete, we must build big and extravagantly. But then, sadly, as a result of all this shilly-shallying by the council, we have to close the doors. It's only temporary, we say. It's the economic climate. Look, we say, how bookings are dwindling going forward. And so on and so forth. We tell the locals we could keep the business going by offering beds to DHSS claimants or even refugees. The locals are suddenly very understanding and supportive and want our plans for a new building approved. Sadly, we board up the windows and erect a rather less than lovely hoarding round the site. It's all the council's fault, we say. And we wait. And whilst I'm waiting, I let it be known that I'm doing everything in my power to relaunch the new place as a boutique hotel with swans folded out of towels and chocolates on the pillows and toilets that work and so on. And everyone in the locality is happy and full of admiration for what I'm doing. I don't mind waiting. I move into a tiny bedsit locally, the cheapest I can find. I just have to sit things out. And then a dreadful thing happens. Despite all our best efforts at security, some squatters clamber over the hoarding and jemmy open a window. Not anything we could have prevented, we tell the insurance company later. The locals were less than pleased. Oh dear, we say, this is a calamity. We will do everything in our power to evict them. Now, I don't know if you've ever had cause to evict squatters, but it takes a long time. And you have to go through a long process of serving eviction notices and so on. Well, they'd been there for a couple of months when the inevitable happened, and there being no electricity or water, they had tried heating something, drugs or a tin of beans or some such, over a gas canister. And, well, you can imagine. While the fire brigade is packing up, the locals jostle round and say, what a shame. It was such a pretty little hotel. It was the jewel in the crown of the West Cliff. Not that any of them had ever been inside it or smelt the smell of cabbage and disinfectant. And you were working so hard to reopen it again. Oh yes, I say. There were to be towels folded into the shape of swans and chocolates on the pillows and toilets with the end of the toilet paper folded into an arrow shape. Well, maybe if I work twice as hard, it will all come out right. And there is the insurance. But I can tell the council are wavering. There is an election coming up. There is uncertainty in the air. There are rats running about the site now, big rats that run into other people's gardens. Oh, the fault of the council. I tell you what, I say, I will instruct my architect to include a second pinnacle. And the council breathe a sigh of relief, feeling they have won a great victory. Oh yes, they say, with the addition of 2 pinnacles, it will indeed be of great architectural merit. And I have a word with Neil and we work out if we cut down on material costs, go for cheaper fitments in the kitchens, we can easily cover the cost of the other pinnacle. But why go to all this trouble and time, you may be asking, and not a little expense? You must love this place, they would say. All those hours you put in, tireless, uncomplaining. The fact is, and I can say it now, I loathed the place. It was frequented by old people who came back year after year, booking for the next while they were staying this year, all making a little joke at staying in Clarice's. Oh, no, sorry, Clarice's. Twice as good as the real one in London. Not that we'd ever want to stay there. Until we got the usual little postcard saying that Mr. and Mrs. Smith had both passed away and wouldn't be taking up their booking after all. But there was always someone. There was always another elderly couple who would want to live out their honeymoon dreams of long ago, booking year after year until they too ran out of steam. And I would look at the Zimmers stacked in the hallway and I used to think, what will happen to us? Where do hoteliers go to stay when they're too old to run an hotel? So here it is. At last, the scaffolding coming down and so on. My forever home. Not that I want to relive my honeymoon memories here, which mostly consisted of unblocking the lavatories and learning the correct way to wait obsequiously at table whilst wearing a ridiculous penguin suit. Oh yes, we always dressed for dinner. And washing up, so much washing up. And the little box room where I stayed until things quietened down in November before the Christmas rush. And she lay back on the pillow in that damp little back bedroom she kept for herself and drifted away, still giving orders. I'll never forget her last words to me. You make sure you look after the hotel. You know how much it means to me. It's not been a glamorous life, but we got by. We don't need all that fancy stuff. Keep it simple. Don't spend beyond your means. Look after the guests and they'll keep coming back for years. They don't ask for much. Just don't lose their details. They're your bread and butter. And start looking out for a part-time job over the winter to pay the bills, as long as you don't do anything silly. And after the doctor and the undertaker had gone, and the black van had driven away, it took me most of the rest of the afternoon to begin cancelling the bookings and phoning an architect friend of mine to come over for a drink with the plans for this shiny new building. As Clarice always said, it will enable me to live comfortably, or probably not quite as she envisaged. The best thing is that the hotel and its memories and its smell of drains and prehistoric ways of doing things is all gone. The slate is wiped clean. With Neil's help, I have created a nice block consisting of 15 luxury apartments, each one worth more than the old hotel itself, plus the penthouse for the developer with the best views of Bournemouth across the green and over the bay. Not to mention the pinnacles, which delight the council and the locals with their architectural merit. It's a win-win all round, I'd say. Thank you for listening to that. Do you enjoy coming to Bournemouth and staying in our charming boutique hotels with towels folded into swans and chocolates on the pillow? Or do you prefer something grander? Your own luxury seaside apartment, perhaps? They do come up from time to time. Either way, I'll probably see you out here on the West Cliff. A biento.